Hello, you beautiful party people, and welcome to the recap for OSSEM's meeting for November 7th of 2025. We're going to go over the show notes. They are going to be in the description below, and you can find it on our website at awesome-holon.co. So let's get into it for this week. So first thing up, we went through and talked about the credential stuffing that was going on in threat data connected to the Have I Been Pwned website, which is a great place for you to be able to go through, type in your email address to see if your data has been in any of the online data breaches. We did an example of mine live to be able to show my very old email has been in 3 data breaches. This is not necessarily something that you can control or change, but it does help if you have unique passwords per location to make sure if an attacker were to be able to get your username and that password, that they're not going to be able to log in every place. I personally like to go through and use something called Bitwarden. Other people have used LastPass. There are other options. But long story short, make sure that you're using unique passwords per location and per website. So with this data, we can go down a little bit further. The second one that we went through and talked about was Danish authorities in a rush to close security loopholes in Chinese electric buses. The article goes through and says it's not just Chinese electric buses, it's anything with internet connectivity, especially when it comes to cars being connected. It's become more and more common nowadays, but if you're interested in more car hacking materials, you can go check out DEF CON and look at their YouTube videos on their car hacking village just to see exactly how far it can go. Let's see. When it comes to this, the next article was talking about no longer evil thermostat. Somebody had gone through and found a way to re-flash the Nest version 1 and version 2 thermostats. So, you can actually keep on using them instead of them being bricked by Google and saying that you can't use them anymore or not supporting them anymore. This actually links to another article that we get down to in a little bit. After that, Austrian ministry, it's actually kicking out Microsoft and is starting to use Nextcloud, which makes this the 3rd country to go through and try this instead of using Microsoft products. In the time of recording, we're just getting out of the area where Windows 10 is no longer supported, so Microsoft is forcing a lot of people to upgrade to newer hardware, so they have that TPM2 module. You can get thin clients fairly inexpensively for your home lab. We can talk more about that in the future, including doing like a 10-inch rack. Future subject, another point in time. But going into our next subject, we've got Futo, Futo.org, which is a parent company who actually throws money at projects that are open source, that are privacy respecting, to where you can go through and do things like have your own Futo keyboard, which keeps everything locally, including the spell correcting, instead of it being sent out to some other location. And then they also have a Futo voice dictation that's all built in and only happens locally instead of it going out to the web. They also have an amazing photo and video app called Image, which gives you the ability to make your own Google Photos or iCloud-like setup where it can actually recognize faces, cats, dogs, whatever else, and have it all local. So if you wanted to look something up, it has some of that AI built in, all local, to categorize things to make it easier to search. Really cool, all self-hosted and standalone. So if you want to, go check that out. There's got a few other things that they're also connected with. This same company also has something called FULU, where they have now made a bounty site where you can go through and also throw your money at it by saying, here's something that I want to see unlocked. Fun fact, this Fulu actually had about 3 weeks ago a bounty of about $10,000 for the Nest unlock. Somebody found it, somebody published it, which is part of the FULU code of conduct, if you will, to be able to collect on that, and they're getting that money. So right now they're in process of going through and validating that everything works there. So definitely go check that out. If you're looking to be able to get into bounties and earning some money on the side, there are other things that are out there that need to be unlocked, and that bounty is open to anybody, which is kind of cool. Louis Rossmann has a video on that to go deeper, because this is one of the companies that he works together with. So go check it out. Going on further, what's going on in the news? We had um, some news going on with ADEIA suing AMD for patent infringement on their processor technology. Interesting thing is that they got bought up multiple different times, and then all of a sudden now that we're in the 9th generation of AMD Ryzen processors, they're now bringing this up and saying you need to stop selling all of your 3D stackable chips. So interesting timing. They're great bang for buck when it comes to gaming. So food for thought there. Take a look at that. That led us into talking about different chip manufacturers, i.e. the large one of TSMC, and just a little bit of information behind that. That's why we got the link here. Talking about Nintendo and the U.S. Patent Office and re-examining the controversial summon character and let it fight. So Pal World went toe-to-toe with them. They've been fighting with Nintendo. It's going to set interesting precedents. It's now being re-looked at, which is kind of cool. We'll see. This is the first time that Nintendo has actually lost a foothold, so we'll see what happens in the future. Then bringing things back locally. I used to do a previous podcast years ago talking about larger cities implementing flock cameras in security for their community. Literally 6 to 9 months later, there was typically some type of article then published about how many times it had falsely identified somebody versus accurately identified somebody. Also, that wasn't just going to the local PD, that was just being leased to the local PD. So they didn't own the hardware, they're paying for a software subscription, so they don't actually own the data for their local folks, it's being leased to them. So there are a few of these flock cameras now in our location, so you need to be aware of that. There's a handful of them that can be used. I would be interested to go talk with the PD and find out if they're being used successfully or how successfully that is. And then, yeah, we got to get local, and we got to be able to be involved with our local folks to be able to say what does or doesn't make sense. So vote with your wallet, go get involved with your community, and at least find out what's going on. So I didn't know about this until I read an article about a car chase, and they were quote unquote helped find the perpetrator via flock cameras. And I'm like, oh, I didn't even know we had these. So food for thought there. There's the article that goes along with that. Then there was a call for help asking how to set up a basic website for like a club or a group. The way that we've been doing it here at Awesome has been with Namecheap and using their WordPress option. The nice thing about Namecheap is you can actually do a privacy domain. So you can set up a .com or a lot of different other ones that mask your real information. So just Namecheap knows that. So you can't just do a who is on that website and then get all of the street address and real information. The WordPress costs like $50 a year, which is not terrible. If you wanted to do something for free though, you could go and use something called GitHub Pages. It doesn't cost you anything. You can write it all in HTML and pop it up. You have different themes that you can go through and use. The one negative, if you're more on the privacy side of the house, is that ultimately GitHub is owned by Microsoft. And GitHub is meant to be able to share code, which is fine, but depending on your use case, maybe that's not going to work for you. So you got a $50 option, then you've got a no dollar option. There's just a couple things. Those work pretty well on both sides. So if there's more call for help, put a comment here on YouTube, and we'll go from there. When it comes to show and tell, since I've been working with Meshtastic and Meshtastic devices for about 4 years now, I brought a whole bunch of them from the years of collecting, playing with them, doing different contests with them, and got to get hands-on with folks. And we had about 3 or 4 folks from our local ham group come and join us, which was great. So we got to make new friends. We actually had a Meshtastic node check-in day a couple days ago, and I got to meet a whole bunch of new folks, which is great. Over the last couple of years, more hams have been putting up radios on their ham towers locally in the area. So it went from my original 3 nodes that I had to the entire area is covered, which is fantastic. So great to be able to meet up with folks. Hope to be able to integrate and work with them more in the future. And if you're watching, welcome. So along with that, letting them know that we have had discount codes for some of these other places that you can get things. Some of the solar options you can get from Seed and Seed Studios. I've gone through and included here. The smallest footprint one is like the size of a stamp that we've used in the contest over at DEF CON. That's the Zhao ESP32S3 with the Wio SX1232 kit. So this has both Wi-Fi and Bluetooth because it's the ESP32, and then the stackable hat is the LoRa board. Those only cost like $12, which is not terrible. If you wanted to do the solar nodes, you can do it with GPS or without GPS. These are fairly inexpensive. You can go through with either one of those. We've got the affiliate links to where you can go through and you get a little bit of a discount, and then the 501c3 for OSSEM also gets a little bit of kickback from that. Then the touch screen sense cap. Love these things for the desktop, to be able to have at your desk, to be able to message things. You don't need your cell phone connected to this because it's got its own touch screen. So it's a very nice interface to be able to see what's going on at your desk or someplace else. Then the other place that we work with is with Rockland. We get a 5% straight off discount there. And the cool thing is Rockland is giving back to the open source project Meshtastic and their developers. So if you throw them a couple bucks, they're throwing that upstream, which is a great way to help continue to sustain this moving forward. Rockland has been a great partner to work with in the past, and they are out of Florida. There may be somebody more local, would love to meet them, but these guys have been amazing to work with. So you got your Heltec wireless tracker. So if you want GPS built into a small device, this is great for like your vehicles if you're going off-roading. When it comes a little bit further down, you can actually use the LoRa 32V3. The most basic board that I would say if you're trying to get into Meshtastic for the first time, this is great because it's got a screen built into it. It's got an easy ability for you to be able to plug in a battery, and you have GPIO off of it. We made multiple cases and taught people how to 3D print in the past, and customize that for their use case and use this, which is great. So it's like 17 bucks or 20 bucks, depending on where you get it from. You can get them on sale. If you go through Rockland, again, you get that discount, and then it goes upstream, which is great. If you wanted to look into something called MQTT, you can actually use Meshtastic to connect back to a device that then can connect to the internet or connect to some service that you've got local. So we are throwing out an idea of, hey, what if you wanted to get some piece of information or look something up on an offline Wikipedia? You could hook that up to an MQTT server and go through the mesh, ask the question to the bot, and then it respond back to you. You can do this with either Wi-Fi or PoE, power over Ethernet. So I made sure to link both of those here. Let's see, a little bit further down, we've got the T-Deck, which is my everyday carry. Use this thing every place. I get about a day and a half worth of battery out of it. Instead of me carrying another device and then having to use my phone to message folks, I just have a standalone. I like the rubberized key versus the BlackBerry style key, but your mileage may vary. I've had 3 of them. The rubberized key is my favorite. The one that I've actually got linked here, they've also gone one step above and beyond, and they also have an external antenna option. The one that I carry is smooth all the way across, but still those rubberized keys. So then I also have a small solar node that I just keep on my backpack. That's with this low mesh Pocket S. So it's got a solar panel built into it. It's pretty small. It's pretty awesome. If you're looking for an e-paper option, there's one here that I've used, and then upgraded one as well. Better button placement. So if you wanted something that was fairly low power, but for the desk or for the wall, this could work. So a lot of content and information there. Deep diving a little bit further, we then got into the lightning talk side of the house, where we had a speaker come up and talk to us about his journey with the Flipper Zero. He just got his at DEF CON this year. I think he wants to stay anonymous, so we're just going to keep him unknown for now. But talking about, hey, here's the first steps of getting started, and he was talking about how to get up and running with the firmware. We can install that via an application or an application in either mobile or on Windows. Once you've got that up and running, you have a lot of different features with the Flipper Zero. He decided to focus on the infrared side of the house. So using the universal remote application, he was able to go through and turn on or off the air conditioning unit that we had there in the room. And cool demo, more things that we can go through and talk about more in the future, like NFC. We talked about NFC blockers for your wallet. So kind of cool. More information and more content to go deeper there. So look forward to have him coming back. And then he also left us with information on if you want to go deeper, the Talking Sasquatch YouTube channel goes deep diving. He just went through and updated this video recently, so if you want something current as of November of 2025, that's a good link and a resource for you to go deeper. And then lastly, the main presentation was on Nextcloud, why you'd want to go through and run this in your environment. They were talking about how and why you want to have your data sovereignty instead of trusting in iCloud or a Google Drive or a OneDrive or whatever else, how and why you can run this yourself. And it comes down to making sure that you can own your content and the content that you're sharing online. Maybe you still want to share photos with friends and family, but you don't want that publicly accessible where your information can be bought or sold or be used to teach an AI someplace else. We want things locally. We want things hosted ourselves. We want to control that data. So Nextcloud gives you the option to self-host your own collaboration software when it comes to document writing, much like Google Drive. So you can have multiple people in there all typing and working on something at the same time. You have version control. You have the ability to use something called Jitsi, which is a open source streaming software that you can get up and running with, and having chat go along with that. So instead of using like Facebook chat or WhatsApp, you can do this all yourself and self-host it. Now, a fantastic question was asked from the community on should everybody be doing this, or what's the technical debt that comes along with this? Because why a lot of people went through and started using online cloud is because the synchronization got really easy when I gave it to somebody else to do. And what it ultimately comes down to is if you're attending this meeting, you're most likely more of a techie. You're probably the techie in your friends and your family. So in my opinion, it's now to the point where this is easy enough, and if we're trying to be responsible, to be able to own our data and our family's data instead of letting it just be out there on the internet, we can take on that technical debt. It'll cost it a little bit in hardware, but if you're looking to try to get into this for a job, this is a great way to practice to make sure you've got that uptime. If this is something that you want to make sure you're having private posts, comments, and chats, again, it far outweighs it just being sold out there online. So the follow-up question to that was, well, what do I do if my house burns down or I'm no longer able to access this? And this brought up the need for backups. And backups, in my opinion, come down to needing 3 different backups. You need 3 different backups, 2 different media types, and 1 offsite. So this becomes a sysadmin chore that you need to work on and plan for while you're going through and doing this. How often do you back up your data? Where are you saving that information? And then where are you sending that to as well? We touched a little bit on what a virtual private network does and why you would need one. If you were just trying to connect to things locally in your own house, you could use Nextcloud there. If you wanted to be able to bring friends and family, you would most likely want to put this behind a VPN. And this is one that you can self-host, i.e. Tailscale, you've got Nebula, you've got OpenVPN, you've got WireGuard, a couple different options there. But we also demystified a lot of the myths around VPNs. So anyway, been talking for a little bit. This has been a very quick recap. I've tried to add as many show notes as possible so you can go through and hope to be able to join us in the future. Otherwise, make sure to join our Discord. We are always looking for folks to be able to come share what projects that they're working on and be able to talk about other things that are going on in the news. If you're interested in deep diving into a subject like Linux user groups or being able to get further in with Meshtastic, we can absolutely go through and do that. A couple folks are looking to start with their first Meshtastic node and get things built. We have a couple other links and a couple other videos that we'll also link here for you to be able to get started. Thanks for joining us. We hope to see you in our next meeting in about 2 weeks. And if not, we'll see you online.